After considerable effort, including with our vaccine suppliers, we are now in a position where we believe we'll be able to commence vaccinations of high priority groups in mid to late February. So we're talking about next month.
Tonight, the federal government rolls out a campaign aimed at reassuring Australians about the safety and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccine, but as restrictions ease here at home, cases are continuing to rise right across the globe. We'll have the latest details in just a few minutes. Also, Democrats continue to move forward with Donald Trump's impeachment ahead of a trial next week as dozens of Capitol rioters blame the former presidents for their accused actions on January 6. And have the media been too soft on Joe Biden? That's the question some people are asking. Our reporter will have that special report coming up.
A guy who is gaffe-prone, who has been accused of plagiarism multiple times, doesn't need to be fact-checked, right? That makes total sense, especially 7 days in. It seems like a bit of a double standard.
And a very good evening to you. You're watching 6 News with the latest independent and unbiased news coverage you won't see anywhere else. Later tonight, Peter is back in the headlines after a new tweet telling people not to use animals as insults. But while some agree with the message, others have pointed out some hypocrisy from the animal rights organisation. We'll have the full reaction in just a few minutes. First though, and the federal government has rolled out a campaign aimed at reassuring Australians about the safety and effectiveness of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine. Plans are now underway for the Australian adult population to be vaccinated against the virus at hospitals, specialist hubs, GP clinics and chemists by the end of this October. But when will you get your jab? Reporter Holly Shields explains.
After being provisionally approved for use, rollout in Australia can be expected in late February, according to PM Scott Morrison. Originally scheduled for the middle of the month, international delays have resulted in a minor pushback. It's hoped that the majority of the adult population, all those over 16 years of age, will be vaccinated against the virus by the end of October this year. This would mean a total of over 24 million people vaccinated in 4 to 5 phases within an 8-month period. Experts agree that an inoculation of this scale is an undertaking of epic proportions. Federal Health Department Secretary Brendan Murphy referred to the rollout as the most complex logistical exercise that perhaps we've ever done in public health in this country. The various phases in the timeline correspond with the different groups to receive the vaccination. The initial phase, Phase 1A, will be the vaccination of those most vulnerable to the virus, including quarantine and border control workers, frontline healthcare workers, and residents and staff of aged care and disability facilities. This phase will cover an estimated 678,000 Australians. Phase 1B will be next. This group includes the elderly, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people over 55 and other Australians over 70, as well as those with an underlying medical condition, and additional groups of healthcare and emergency workers. Phase 1B amounts to approximately 6.1 million people. The majority of Australians will be vaccinated in either Phase 2A or Phase 2B. 2A encompasses the remaining Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander population, other Australians over 50, and other critical and high-risk workers, while 2B includes all adults not yet vaccinated. The key difference is that these phases will be undertaken with the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine as opposed to the Pfizer vaccine. The Australian government has purchased 53 million and 10 million of each respectively. As for children under 16, provided the Therapeutic Goods Administration approves a vaccine, a final Phase 3 of the rollout will see that they get the shot. $23.9 million has been invested in a campaign aimed at informing the public on what to expect with vaccinations. Certain demographics prone to anti-vax attitudes will be targeted in a bid to minimize conspiracy spreading and to ensure a smooth rollout. Due to significant supply shortages, imports of the AstraZeneca vaccine have been potentially delayed until early March. Although once the issue is cleared, Australia could have access to a total of 140 million vaccine doses.
Holly Shields reporting there, and while Australia has done pretty well in dealing with the virus with only 900 deaths, relatively low compared to the rest of the world, globally cases have surpassed 100 million as countries around the world struggle with new virus variants and vaccine shortfalls. One person is infected every 7.7 seconds, meaning around 1.3% of the world's population has gotten the virus at one point or another, and more than 2.1 million people have sadly died. And despite representing just 28% of the global population, the US, UK, India, Brazil and Russia make up more than half of all reported COVID-19 cases. And returning to America, fans are slowly returning to NBA games, but we are now seeing COVID-sniffing dogs outside of stadiums. Take a look. And staying in the US, Democrats are continuing to move forward with impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump. The former president has now met with House Republican Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy as some of his diehard supporters called for him to run again in 2024. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has the latest.
Well, Leo, a lot of news in the United States. Former President Donald Trump's articles of impeachment have moved from the House to the Senate. You may recall Trump was impeached in the House on a charge of incitement of insurrection after the siege at the Capitol on January the 6th. That is when he convinced his supporters that the election was stolen from him after Joe Biden was declared the winner. We know that the article has been taken from the House to the Senate, where a Senate trial will begin the second week in February. Chief Justice John Roberts will not preside over that trial. Given that Trump is no longer in office, there is a bit of wiggle room. Now, the Constitution regularly calls for a Chief Justice to oversee and preside over a Senate impeachment trial. However, given that Trump's no longer in office, that's not the case. It will actually be someone else. That person has recently been hospitalized out of an abundance of caution due to some health issues, but they are expected to be available for this trial to happen the second week in February. The thing that now remains, or the question that remains, is will anything actually happen as a result of this Senate trial? Former President Trump, I should say, he was acquitted in the Senate on another charge about a year ago, and that's expected to happen again, given that all Democrats and 17 Republicans would have to vote to convict him of this charge in the Senate. It would be very difficult for Democrats to get 17 Republicans to agree with them. It's what a lot of people are calling unlikely, and some Republican senators even argue that this trial is unconstitutional given that Trump is no longer in office. So we're going to continue to follow the very latest from right here in America, and we'll get you up to date as soon as we know more on that impeachment trial. I'm reporting in the U.S. I'm Jackson Gosnell. Back to you.
Meanwhile, I did mention earlier how some of his diehard supporters are continuing to call for him to run again in 2024. Other Trump supporters are now blaming the former president for their individual roles in the Capitol siege. We know now that the lawyer for one rioter who allegedly attacked police officers with a baseball bat said he was inspired by Trump's speech at a rally beforehand, while another person now claims they were duped by Trump. More than 150 people have now been charged in connection with the attack, according to the latest tally from CNN. Of course, it might be a PR strategy rather than a legal strategy. We'll keep you updated with the latest developments. A GOP congresswoman has removed dozens of old social media posts amid large scrutiny of past comments. Marjorie Taylor Greene has taken down the Facebook post from 2018 and 2019 in which she endorsed fringe conspiracy theories and suggested that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi could be executed for treason.
She's a traitor to our country. She's guilty of treason. That's right. She took an oath to protect American citizens and uphold our laws, and she gives aid and comfort to our enemies who illegally invade our land. That's what treason is. Exactly. And by our law, representatives and senators can be kicked out and no longer serve in our government. And it's a crime punishable by death, is what treason is. Nancy Pelosi is guilty of treason, and we want her out of our government.
And meanwhile, a TV reporter and videographer were apparently threatened with arrest after attempting to ask the Congresswoman a question at a town hall event. The WRCB crew says that they were not allowed to speak to guests or to the Georgia lawmaker. That's what they were apparently told. And when they did ask, Green reportedly responded that she was at the event to only talk to her constituents. Well, we all know it's the job of a journalist to hold those in power to account, but 1 week into Joe Biden's presidency, the mainstream media is again under fire for going too soft on the administration. Fox News, which has showed heavy support of Trump, is among those accusing the media of fawning over President Biden. So how does the coverage compare to Trump's early days in office, and how dangerous could political bias in news actually be? Chief reporter Connor Alforque explains.
Scrawled on the doors to the Capitol, 3 frightening words: murder the media. A sentiment writ large in America where 60% of people don't trust the media. It's a country where many media outlets do not hide their political colours, frequently editorialising their platforms.
And did you all see the disgusting display from the mainstream press? They couldn't wait to genuflect to kiss the rear end of the Biden administration.
Trust in the mainstream media was further eroded by the fake news president, who berated reporters and often discredited their work.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. When you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
A Harvard study in 2018 found that Donald Trump's early days as president set a new record for unfavourable press. The media coverage was 80% negative, double when compared to the first 100 days of Obama's presidency. But in this post-Trump era, when a more conventional president occupies the Oval Office,
the tingling sensation up and down the media mob's legs, well, they are throbbing like never before. After 4 years without Obama-gasms, they're finally back today.
anger and accusations are flying at what some believe is the media fawning over the Biden administration. During the election campaign, pieces were written on Joe Biden's love of ice cream. On Inauguration Day,
I mean, those lights that are just shooting out from the Lincoln Memorial along the reflecting pool, it's like almost extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America.
Despite being markedly conservative, Fox News is not afraid to call out its competitors for perceived biased reporting, critics slamming Fox for being hypocritical.
Yeah, yesterday was horrible to watch how the media were losing all sense of themselves. The tongue baths that they gave Joe Biden, it was just embarrassing to watch.
So could media bias actually impact voter beliefs? Scholars say that's unlikely. As long as the audience is aware of media bias, distortions in reporting are unlikely to impact someone's political stance. However, it could create a society that's less informed and less trusting of the media. US communications scholars say that while Trump demonized the media, President Biden will help restore trust with his rhetoric around free speech. Connor Alforque, 6 News.
Shares in Gamestop have sunk dramatically as a number of platforms restrict trading in the video game retailer. Now, to explain, GameStop is a US video game chain whose 1,700% rally has been at the centre of a large battle between small-scale retail investors and hedge funds over the past week. Now, according to the ABC, after finishing Wednesday's session at just over $347 a share, GameStop plunged to just $265 when the New York Stock Exchange opened the following day, ending the day down 44% total. But since then, the company's share price rallied in after-hours trade when trading platform Robinhood released a statement saying that it would allow limited buys of the securities it had suspended from trade. Over on Reddit subreddit Wall Street Bets, some people reported that the company was now preventing investors from buying Gamestop and other volatile stocks. And what's particularly odd about this story is that we have actually seen Republican Senator Ted Cruz saying he fully agrees with Democratic Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez's position on the matter. And of course, they're at the opposite ends of politics, so really odd to see them agree. So again, certainly a lot of people angry about what's going on, many arguing the retail trading platforms were trying to protect Wall Street at the Wall Street interests at the expense of Main Street. Well, meanwhile, PETA is back in the headlines after tweeting out a list of animal-friendly language. Here it is. The animal rights organisation says that calling someone an animal as an insult reinforces the myth that humans are superior to other animals and justified in violating them. Here are the examples they've listed. Instead of saying chicken, say coward. Instead of saying rat, say snitch. Instead of saying snake, say jerk. Instead of saying pig, say repulsive. And instead of saying sloth, say lazy. And while some people have agreed, many have wondered how an animal could actually be offended by these words, and others have also pointed out the hypocrisy of PETA saying they care about animals when a report now claims that they killed 90% of all animals left at one of their shelters in Virginia. You can, of course, let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. Remember, you can find more breaking news by following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search 6 News A to find us. I'm Leonardo Pugbisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.